Hello everybody, my name is Eric Terramons, and today we're going to be checking out, distributed by Aoshima, manufactured by Funny Nights, Fate Apocrypha's Semiramis. She's a 1/8 figure, and this character is beautiful. But despite my love for the Fate series, for those of you that don't know the Fate series so well, it's quite the series. Its concept for alternate realities and storytelling could give Disney and Warner Brothers one heck of a run for their money. But we're not here to talk about that, we're here to talk about Semiramis from Apocrypha, and my goodness, I will tell you my thoughts and opinions of her at the end of the review. Her base is a thick slab of wood. It's so heavy, hefty, takes up a ton of space, but the space isn't so much the problem. For real, it's just the weight. Can't even pick it up off the table normally. Like, this is so heavy. The only thing wobbling on her would be her hair, and honestly, you've got to shake her up pretty good for that. I know that a wooden base sounds like it would be so regal, elegant, and high class. It's made out of wood. But putting paint on top of wood scratches incredibly easily, so you have to be very careful about all these edges. Did I mention the weight? A lot of you have more than one figure per shelf inside your glass display cabinet. This is so much weight. Last thing anyone wants is to come home horrified with just everything broken because you put too much weight on that tablet. This could have easily just been a round circular black base. I hate boring round circular black bases. And the little twist that this one's made out of wood doesn't make me happy. It just makes me extremely annoyed. Though I do like the nice finish we have along the border. It's so massive, and she's not even really contained on the base completely in the first place, with her hair coming out here and there on the right side. I feel like this base was overall extremely poorly designed. She pegs into it with two extremely thick chunks of plastic on each one of her feet, and where I would normally be worried about something like this, on this figure I'm not, because despite her hair not actually plugging in, it is a definite anchor point on this figure as well. She is extremely solid, but once in there, it's very stressful to attempt taking her out, because you always feel like maybe something on it's going to snap or break. Her shoes are very nice, but they're matte, and personally, I think I would have made the black more of a gloss, so they would have popped just a little on top of the darker stockings that she's wearing. The gold trim is beautiful, and I like the high heel quite a bit. The rose with the spike in the middle is fantastic, where we then go up into some gorgeous lace that is all matte on top of matte on top of matte. I would have liked to see a bit of gloss here and there, just to make things pop a little bit. Despite this, the fact that this lace is done in a different color is excellent at breaking the monotony of the black on black. Going up her legs, they've actually put in a ton of detail, with some lovely lace around her thighs. We have the strap and clip keeping them in place, and a metallic, shiny, red pair of underpants? My goodness, Semiramis. With lovely lace and kerfluffles going across and beautiful little rose shapes here and there, she is sporting something quite spicy, which is really befitting the character. However, due to the fact that her base is so thick, heavy, and her hair and her dress take up so much space, you're just never gonna see it. It's the kind of thing that you know it's there, and that's it. And they put so much work into it, and her legs, or even the fact that you see her pulling up a bit of her skirt on the left side, they didn't bring it up higher just to give you a bit of a peek at the leg. She would have benefited from that, and it would have matched up well with her character. A good example of this being done properly would be Formidable by Alter. With a figure that's rocking roughly the same kind of silhouette, they did an incredible job with that figure. You can see on the inside of her dress she has a couple of different lines here and there indicating where all the plastics glue together. It's actually pretty well done, it's just, again, it's not something you really see, so moving on, I guess? Bottom of her dress has this lovely wavy kerfuffliness that goes all along it. Underneath, there's no printing, but at the top we have this nice, lovely gold matte design. It's done in a darker black, and we don't really get a lot of highlights or shading on here, but the lighting reflect across it in everyday real world does a good job at giving us the kind of lighting that we need. Going into her extremely froofly, poofy, heavily textured dress, where at the bottom everything is all bunched up nicely. As it slowly goes up, things smooth out a bit, and we have some nice stretches going into her left hand that's actually pulling up on it. Despite her pulling up at this part of her dress, it's not actually pulling up anything from the bottom. The bell part of her dress is really holding the weight of this whole dress over top of it, so when she's pulling up here, she's not really pulling up on the dress itself, just the material that's overlaid on top of it. The whole thing is done in a darker color, and we get a little bit of highlights here and there that are of the warmer variety. Afterwards, she has these flaps that come down around her. These have some shading and a little bit of highlights down the center of them. They all kind of look like thicker, leathery, armor-style platings. However, the left one is extremely bunched up due to the fact, I guess, that she's pulling up on her dress here, and it's just causing this to fold in on itself. We have some elegant red material here that comes all around her, kind of making it feel like a rose. Maybe this should have been done in a glossier color, or perhaps slightly pearlized or metallic, similar to her undergarments. We have a little bit of shading on them. Her corset is nice. We have this beautiful gold line work around it, little printed on designs similar to that we have around the bell kerfluffles at the bottom of her dress. A lovely centerpiece where it seems like there's a couple of clips here and there. The back actually opens up into a V with a nice gold trim. However, we don't really get a good look at it because her hair is so strongly in the way. On the sides, we have this lovely little design as well with some nice curves and stretches in the fabric here. In the center, parting her chest, there's this thick golden rod of sorts. It looks okay. There's no shading, no highlights, and I probably would have liked different type of textures here and there, so it pops out just a bit more. It's still somewhat metallic, it's just very matte. The chest pieces itself have some lovely gold line work across it, with some carved-in gold lining, and the whole thing holds her chest very well. Her chest looks very nice, minor shading on it here or there, and sculpted in a way where her right one is squished in ever so slightly by her forearm. It's not done incredibly well, but it's not done poorly either. It's just middle of the road. Her shoulders and arms are relatively thin and cute, especially in comparison to how thick and strong they've made her legs. But because you don't really see her legs, then you really don't have this to compare with when you're looking at her from a distance or on a shelf. We have some nice white furfuffles around the bicep area where it makes it really look like her arms are going into her sleeves. This is very well executed. The gloves that she's wearing look fantastic. I love the sculpt work. I think that it's really nice that on the right one we have a lot of folds in the fabric that really do well at indicating how her arm is bent. Lovely line work here, a little bit of shading, though not that much. And the left one looks just as good as the right. Her hands are tiny, but they're very dainty, and they do look to have a nice shape to them. With cute little fingernails and this lovely golden spike going through them, I would say it can be a little bit annoying if you're moving this figure around, especially when you're dusting her, because they keep popping out of the hands. You want to push them in there, but if you push these spikes in too hard, I fear that it might break, damage, or mess them up. I almost want to put a tiny little bit of glue in there, but I'm always worried about how glue might react with certain plastics. And because everything is so small and precise here, I'd be worried to mess things up. So this whole tapestry thing that's bolted into her hands looks really nice, but the slightest breeze and everything just starts to fall off of her. So you have to be mindful of this and very careful, especially while dusting. The spikes that are in her hands look awesome. There's these cute little engraved rose designs on the top, and I think it looks so pretty. But I think the design to Semiramis in general is just absolutely gorgeous. She was my favorite from Apocrypha, so I was pretty hyped about getting this figure. She's wearing a lovely neck collar. The paintwork on it isn't exactly precise, but it does look really nice. And all of it connects into these lovely furs that flow around her head. This has a really well done level of shading and minor highlights to it so that it feels like fur and everything pops out very nicely. The sculpt work here is extremely well done. We have multiple sectioning offs and inserts of plastics from the molds, but it's not that bad. It really does look good because everything here is carved so deeply. You're not always sure if you're looking at two molds being connected into one another or if it's just the sculpt work. Just being able to hide those connecting pieces is a solid win for me. Her face looks so much like the anime, my goodness. A little longer and pointier than my favorite kind of anime faces of all time, being such a huge fan of round and cute. But the facial expression with the winky eye and the longer design to it really just gives off this older, wiser, mischievous queen that we all love vibe. However, when you look at her profile, everything looks so cute and small and rounded off. Very well done. Her elvish ears look beautiful. I personally would have liked the ears to maybe be ever so slightly longer, but I'm just a huge fan of longer elf ears to begin with. And because she has so much hair going on here that are over and around them, it would have been cool to see them pop just a bit more so that they do a better job at accentuating that fantasy design. She has a little bit of coloration for her lips, a nice redder line so that you can really see her smile from a distance. The eyes in general are completely matte. I would have liked to see maybe a little bit of gloss over the eyeball area, but the decal itself looks so pretty. This figure is so vampiric, I love every single second of it. I actually almost feel like she gave off more vampiric vibes than Vlad in the series himself. Well, I guess up until the end. Her hair is ambitious as fudge. I can't believe how hardcore this hair is. It's solid, it's a massive tapestry, it goes all across this figure, and I would say it's pretty well executed. Of course, you're going to see a couple of mold lines here or there, but due to this being a 1/8 and everything being so thin and well inserted, it still looks pretty great and it's not too bad. The whole thing is done with a base darker color, and then they put these lovely highlights here and there. It's nice seeing the hair kind of flow and go all around the ears, but as I had mentioned, I would have liked to have seen the ears just a little bit more. And because they wanted to do this flowy looking design, you have more sectioned off pieces and inserts of the plastic that are noticeable. She has two front strands where they both come down absolutely gorgeously. It looks like it has such personality. They just weave in and out of one another, where they connect into a little spike ball at the bottom. I love how the one on the right really goes behind her arm, and the left one going over her arm really gives a realistic feeling to this figure. The back of her hair is completely wild, and by that I mean wild in how it's created and how it's executed, because it is so smooth, so well kept. There's just strands going through strands. We have some fairly well-defined line work carved into the sculpture here that really help at hiding any kind of mold lines, and everything kind of just falls around the ground all around her. I imagine if she wasn't a magical, perfect queen beast, that she'd probably have to wash her hair pretty often. Unless she just floats and flies everywhere. However, dusting it is very difficult. You know what? Dusting this figure in general is extremely difficult. Everything here attracts dusts on a level that makes no sense, and for real it takes a lot of time to dust it because everything is matte. It doesn't come off necessarily easily, and you gotta be really careful because you don't want to scratch the figure either. And dusting does need to be done quite frequently with her to make sure it doesn't get too gunked on there, otherwise it's a nightmare to take it all off. Upon her release, she was going for 14,800 yen. And then her second release, the same price. Third release, the same price. She's a 1/8 figure. Honestly, with all the details you're getting with this character, that makes sense. I would say that's the exact amount that she's worth. My being such a huge Semiramis fan, I wouldn't have mind paying somewhat of a premium on her just because I like her so much. And there's just not enough merchandise of her around. When they released that Fate Grand Order figure of her, I wanted it so badly. Due to the fact that I was going to a trip to Japan that month, I had to axe a lot of my pre-orders just so that I could afford going on my trip. And I remember when I was down there, I had to choose between her or Prince Eugen. And as I already had the classic Apocrypha one, and I prefer this design more, I was just okay of letting go of the Grand Order one. It still looks absolutely beautiful, and I am kind of sad that I don't have her. This one really does fill in that Semiramis void I had in my heart, so I'm pretty content with her. She looks a ton like the illustration. She gives off major anime vibe. This figure exudes so much personality and charisma. I think she's beautiful and amazing, despite all my little nitpicks and gripes I have about the figure throughout her review. I just try to be as objective as possible, even though subjectively, I can see past all those little issues pretty easily. Is she worth paying a major premium for? Well, in truth, there's not all that much Semiramis things out there, and if you really love this design from be it the anime or the game, I do think that she's extremely well done and looks beautiful on any shelf, but between being 1/8, super heavy, taking up surprisingly a lot of space, and being quite fragile, she does come with a lot of her issues. So hopefully my review today helped you decide what side of the fence you're on. If you like my video just a little bit, it doesn't cost much to heroically slash that like, deviously click on that subscribe, and wish upon grasping that notification bell. It goes a crazy long way at helping support my channel, and I really appreciate it. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Okay, so like it follows the story about this one guy named Emiya and Prince Arthur, and get this, Arthur is a girl. Wizards, so there's wizards, and they summon heroic people to show up and help them fight whatever the challenges they need to fight, and it's all to get the Holy Grail. A lot of gender bending going on in this series, but hang with me for a second, okay? Because they're smoking hot for the most part, and it's pretty fun. No, wait, that's the wrong Fate, though. Emiya is kind of in it, but he's not really. Really, you're seeing these two factions. They're two different warring families, okay? And these different families have to contend, and the winner gets to make a wish from the Holy Grail. Kind of like Emiya, like he's part of like a big wizard battle in that other series I was talking to you a second ago, but I don't want to confuse you too much. This character, who's on one of the opposing sides, but she's not part of one of the main opposing family sides, she's part of like a secret third faction that secretly was kind of like planning or doing something to like change reality, but they all kind of want to change reality in all these different universes. A good version, and then there's multiple different bad outcomes that can happen. So when you kind of get into Grand Order, especially like the cartoon, you have this character going back in time with Mash, and Mash is a great character. She looks fantastic. I love the giant shield. They're cool. Going back in time, and they're changing all the bad possible timelines where they're trying to make them so they can turn out good again. And so you'll run into all these characters like maybe Semiramis, but she won't be what she usually is. This character here, she's like an assassin. Although she's so powerful, you could argue she's probably one of like the best assassins because she seems to be able to use like magics and everything like a caster class. Oh my gosh, there are so many classes. And based off of a real character in our history, like so many people are from the Fate series. Her in particular, the king was like a horrible piece of garbage that treated their subjects really terribly back in the day, and so there's allegations that way back when she poisoned him, and so her people really mistrusted her and didn't want anything to do with her because of this, but she actually brought this amazing renaissance to their people. And this isn't even talking about any of the video games, mobile games, online games, story games. Some of them are even kind of like H games. Personally, my favorite of the Fate series is Heaven's Feel, and it's only because I love the adult tone that that show had. It wasn't just adult like violence, fighting, blood and death, but really the level of emotional integrity and conflict that you get in that series was absolutely fantastic. I loved every second of Heaven's Feel. It was just really good. Though could I say that Heaven's Feel is my favorite if I didn't have access to any of the pre-paths and stories of Shiro Emiya to begin with? Probably not. So it's just as a whole, I really like it. Of all of the characters in all of Fate, I do really like Semiramis quite a bit. She's probably like in my top 5.